Today, Gaming News Santa comes once a year, and this year it's in a blizzard. This is CheckPoint. Welcome to CheckPoint, where, unlike Bobby Kotick, we still have the full support of our board of directors.
Isn't that you and Paul?
No, technically we're co-presidents.
Oh, so we don't have a board of directors.
I got a plank with a bunch of names carved in it. Steven Spielberg, Sofia Coppola, Blake Edwards.
And we have its full support.
Yeah, it's holding up the pointy part of the desk.
Oh, neat. Yeah. The biggest news this week is that Nintendo's little-known console, the Switch, was 2021's best-selling console in the US and the UK, selling lots. Just shut up, don't ask. I'm not paying a monthly subscription to a bunch of industry analyst groups just to hear how many Switches everyone bought. Someone said it's the most, so it's the most. Anyway, hot on the news that Nintendo reigns supreme over console land, Microsoft has apparently just conceded defeat and stopped producing the Xbox, which is a weird move, given that they just bought Actibling, but I'm sure there's some larger reason. Microsoft just stopped producing the Xbox One. That makes way more sense. Look, you can't fault me for thinking Xbox was wrapping up their console division. Video game news is weird right now, what with Microsoft buying ABK and Take-Two buying Zynga, and actual grown adults thinking this means someone needs to buy EA. And besides, what console manufacturer is going to keep producing the older generation of hardware now that the new one is out? All right. Sony's strategy for dealing with the shortfall in PlayStation 5 supply is to produce more PlayStations 4, which is a weird move, given that everyone seems to already own a PlayStation 4. Sorry, I was expecting Graham to pass me another fake note that clarified the whole situation and highlighted my buffoonery, but nope, it's still just a really weird move by Sony.
So yes, there was other video game news this week, and some of it even made the show today, but if you had news you wanted people to know about, Tuesday was a bad time for it. Conversely, if you had something you wanted to sneak under the radar, Tuesday was actually a great time. For example, there was another report from the Wall Street Journal on how Activision Blizzard King has fired or otherwise pushed out over 36 employees and disciplined a further 40 in the ongoing wake of their state-led harassment lawsuit. And according to sources, CEO Bobby Kotick was afraid that if word of all that got out, it might make the company look even worse in the public eye. Anyway, all of that was completely overshadowed by a totally unrelated story that Microsoft has agreed to pay the staggeringly unprecedented price of $68.7 billion to buy Activision Blizzard King. Safe to say, nobody saw this coming. Well, except maybe head of Microsoft Gaming Phil Spencer. He probably knew. After all, back in November, he told staff at Microsoft that he was, quote, disturbed and deeply troubled by the horrific events and actions at Activision Blizzard, and that Microsoft was, quote, evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard and making ongoing proactive adjustments. It's just that nobody quite predicted it would be as proactive as just buy the damn thing, cash. Yeah, $68 billion cash. Must be nice. So yes, Microsoft is going to own the triumvirate of Activision, Blizzard, and King, along with all their surviving subsidiaries, Treyarch, Raven, High Moon, Beanox, Sledgehammer, Demonware, Infinity Ward, Toys for Bob, among others. Xbox now owns Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Spyro, StarCraft, Candy Crush, Diablo, Overwatch. Xbox owns Crash Bandicoot. What does this mean for Sony? Ultimately, you shouldn't care, because company-focused tribalism is free marketing at best and toxic at worst, but regardless, it's too early to say. Based on how Microsoft has been handling their purchase of Bethesda, they'll continue to honor ongoing agreements and eventually just make everything that ABK publishes Xbox and Windows exclusive. What does this mean for Bobby Kotick? It's up in the air. So that we're all on the same page, Microsoft doesn't own ABK yet. The deal isn't expected to close until June of 2023, and it sounds like the long-suffering devs at Activision Blizzard are stuck with him until at least then, at which point he'll very likely be given a swift kick out the door, during which he'll snag his contractually guaranteed $290 million in the case of his termination as the result of a change of corporate ownership. And he's almost definitely going to be shit-canned, because while Kotick's letter to ABK staff was a bunch of non-specific wank about, quote, our talent and our games are important components of the construction of a rich metaverse, Phil Spencer's letter to Microsoft staff was a little more direct, if through the lens of corporately accepted parlance, when he said, quote, we also believe that creating success and autonomy go hand in hand with treating every person with dignity and respect. We hold all teams and all leaders to this commitment. We're looking forward to extending our culture of proactive inclusion to the great teams across Activision Blizzard. Because if nothing else, remember this. According to Bobby Kotick, this sale isn't about the lawsuit or the allegations. It's because the ABK stock price was low, down to around $65 from a high of $130 last February. And Kotick's reason for that stock price drop was, again, not all of Activision Blizzard's internal problems, but that they had to delay Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4. Which is an absolute shell game of a response when you take 3 seconds and 2 brain cells to think about why those games had to be delayed. Because of all of the internal problems. It would be like me saying, sorry, I can't come out dancing on Friday night, not because of my horrific snowboarding injury, but because I am currently on crutches. And yes, I'm aware that I don't snowboard, dance, or go out on Fridays, but this is hypothetical. Like, imagine Bobby Kotick wasn't an alien in a skin suit. Finally, what does this mean for ABK employees, especially the ones actively organizing to fight the culture of the company? Who can say? When it comes to being good employers, Microsoft certainly talks the talk, and by all accounts, they also walk the walk. So if someone has to swoop in and change baby Bobby's shit-smeared diaper, they're probably a very good candidate. But for ABK employees, who knows how many more very good candidates will get fired before Kotick gets his golden parachute. And speaking of money, if anyone from Microsoft is listening and would like to purchase a positive and welcoming team of high-functioning internet goofballs, LoadingReadyRun is here for you for the comparative steal of a mere $100 million, which, for the benefit of those not in the accounting department, is less than 0.0015% of what you've agreed to spend on ABK. So really, we're an incredible deal. Plus, unlike Kotick, we'd be super chill if you just fired us.
Okay, sure. There's a bunch of jaw-dropping news involving Microsoft's eventual ingestion of the ABK catalog into the Xbox Gestalt, and how soon you'll be able to play an even more massive back catalog of hits for a monthly subscription fee on par with Netflix. But hey, Nintendo still has exciting news. For example, they've got posters. Yep, posters of N64 games. And they're just giving them away. If you've got My Nintendo and 500 platinum points, and you're willing to pay shipping, and you want to immortalize Mario Kart 64 on your wall, but you've only got 50 centimeters by 70 centimeters worth of space available. Oh, and you have to live in Europe, so equally big day for Nintendo. Yep.
Hey, very, very minor spoiler for the upcoming Pokemon Legends Arceus, but a bunch of stuff got leaked from the game, including the full Pokédex and images of a bunch of the starter Pokemon's full evolutions in their older Hisuian forms. It may be the game's canonically first Pokédex, but this is not the Pokemon Company's first rodeo, and they're taking steps to have all the leaks removed in an effort to retain some amount of wonder, forgetting that it's 2022 and we don't get to have joy. Despite that, some folks are taking particular notice of Typhlosion, and this is the only spoiler we're going to show you, because Hisuian Typhlosion looks like they're stoned out of their tiny mind. For reference, here's the previous Typhlosion design, which we might characterize as brimming with barely contained flame rage, and now, new Typhlosion, who took edibles 3 hours ago and is wondering if Mr. Mime has chips. Combine him with the relentlessly positive jock and the wispy fashion goth, and we're slowly rounding out the full pantheon of people I knew in high school.
Microsoft buying Actabling for a staggering $69 billion is definitely outside the realm of the common human like me. And if you're like me, you also buy chocolate milk at the 7-Eleven and figure, what the hell, I'll also pick up a Lotto Max ticket for a $50 million prize, because that seems like big money. But let's not forget that ABK's games are made by people, and you'll be pleased to hear that those people are still fighting for their labor rights. On Tuesday, the ABK Workers Alliance tweeted that they would be continuing to fight for workplace improvement and, quote, the rights of our employees, regardless of who is financially in control of the company. But while workers are fighting the world over for their collective rights to directly profit from their labor, we're also seeing an unlikely example of real collective action happening in the virtual space. The game is called Foxhole, a top-down shooter where players fulfill different roles on a massive multiplayer battlefield. Battles can last for days, and players need resupply, which is where other players must fill the logistical role, who gather resources and craft materials and then transport everything to the front lines. An army runs on its stomach after all, and without resources, there's no war. Foxhole recently had a patch where logistics tasks became more difficult or time-consuming, making the job a lot harder. Frustrated players then banded together in a collective they called the Logistics Organization for General Improvement, or LOGI, wrote an open letter to developers Siege Camp demanding an explanation, and when none came, they immediately went on strike. I should add, 1,800 people went on strike on a game for which they paid $34. They straight up folded their arms and said, we refuse to play this game that we paid good money for unless you do something about our working conditions. And now other players are struggling to pick up the slack, which I predict will go the same way it did for John Deere. Also, listen to excerpts from this open letter. Utilizing feedback from our members, we have identified the most detrimental issues to the logistics experience. 1. Pull times from public stockpiles/refineries are too long. 2. Acquiring early game components is overly difficult, competitive, and toxic. 3. Hold time for factory orders is too short. 4. Production buildings need a regiment queue. 5. Containers do not allow closed-loop logistics. 6. Lack of midline logistics facilities. If you skim this, it sounds like a list of complaints from workers at an early 20th century steel mill. I love this! Hell yeah, Logi! Stick it to the man! You have nothing to lose but your virtual chains!
Turns out, Simlish isn't real.
Everyone knows that Simlish is the gibberish language that EA made up for the Sims, Graham.
It's not a language.
Yes, obviously, it's made up.
No. It wasn't designed to resemble a language. It has a few common sounds, but the vast majority of it is improvised on the spot by voice actors. There's no dictionary. The point is it has no structure and never repeats.
So they're just like,
Presh, nendastly.
Steer me hot, your style pop.
Normally, yeah.
Oh, you must hear Matat Kishabati pop.
It this lovely is nicht snappen.
Bus nearest Katy Perry na my hofster. Tiber star farsty maybe?
Knows the bada, labadaba, just the bleepy bloop.
Oh, sang.
Are you guys okay?
No,
I sneer more
for. Arming Cup. Bobby Kotick also wanted to purchase a gaming news site in order to, quote, change Activision's public narrative. Bobby, we were here all this time and never got a phone call. We should really get around to installing a phone.
Can I share my favorite little bit to come out of all the ABK news? Is this interview with the Washington Post from Phil Spencer, where he talks about sort of his plan, you know, like it's like, okay, sure, we've got Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and Candy Crush and everything. Mm-hmm. But he says, I was looking at the IP list. I mean, let's go. He's looking at, like, because Activision makes like a handful of games, but they own a ton of games. So
right.
he says King's Quest, Guitar Hero.
Oh, Jesus.
He says, I love this. I should know this, but I think they've got hexen. They do, by the way. They do have hexen. So, but what he says in this thing is he's like, look, we own Activision now. What I would like for them to do is, obviously, they keep making Call of Duty and the stuff that Activision makes. But then I want to be able to go to like all the subsidiaries and be like, what does Activision have that you'd like to do?
Because we can just send you that IP.
Because you can just do that.
Right.
Rather than like Crash Bandicoot 4, right?
Yeah.
Toys for Bob made it. It was awesome. It was really good. It didn't sell freaking millions and millions of copies. And they were like, all right, Toys for Bob, of all people, you're now helping on Call of Duty Warzone. And it's like, you think that's why someone got a job at Toys for Bob?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, right?
So I love the idea that Phil Spencer is like, we own, not yet, but like we're going to own all of it.
Yeah.
Let's do something with it.
Right. Spread it around.
Yeah.
I love the idea that, there's always the thing when a company takes over another big company, that there's like the consolidation. It's like, oh, we have all these departments that are now duplicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're looking at it, it's like, we have so many like World War II shooters.
Yeah.
We need to do some consolidation here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's an opportunity there to basically say what kind of shooter is Battlefield versus what kind of shooter is, I don't know, let's Call of Duty or whatever, and be like, can we striate them even more, right? Then you can say we have competitive games, but what if we can actually provide a means to say now they are actually different. Now they can both exist, but they can be two very different things from each other. Mm-hmm. There's those things. I mean, I'm not in favor of this kind of media consolidation generally, even when like Disney went out and bought Lucasfilm and went out and got Fox and put everything together. It's great to be at home and just pull up Disney Plus and be like, I can just watch things. It's like, that's great from the user experience standpoint. Awesome.
Yeah.
But there's also that real fear of when you have that kind of media consolidation, the next thing you know, it's like, well, we might have two development units that are working on similar things, and they can keep working on them, but we definitely don't need two marketing departments for separate things, right?
Yeah. And like this is why I feel
ambivalent.
Not ambivalent, but like why I have a lot of conflicting thoughts about the whole purchasing story.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned in the story, it's like Activision shouldn't even be in the position that they're in, and even if they are, they should be able to clean up their own mess.
Yeah.
But if it was going to take somebody coming in to clean up their mess for them, I'm kind of glad it's Microsoft.
Yeah.
Like I do think that they'll do a good job, dealing with the bullshit happening at Activision. That said, it's weird that like Microsoft owns Activision or will own Activision Blizzard and Bethesda, and I don't like the consolidation in that regard. It's probably not a good thing.
No. I mean, that's also, though, an opportunity for them to say, what are the things that we think are worth the most to us, and what are the things that we think we can spin off into other companies, and then, send other studios out and just be like, we're cutting you loose, we're cutting you loose, we're cutting you loose. You have to now live on your own. That could also happen if they were like, we need to tighten our belts. But generally what happens when that happens is like, you're all fired. We're keeping the IP and you're all fired. But Phil Spencer talking in the game about like, look at all the great stuff they have. What if we could do something more with that? And it's like, then you sound like you care about video games.
What a concept!
And we haven't had a CEO that feels like they care about video games since Iwata, right?
Yeah. So
I'll just wait for you to get it in front of my face, and then I'll.
What's GmbH?
It's Gesellschaft Miss Bet.
It's like German for co.
Beschaften Haftung. Fuck. I used to know it. It basically means LLC.
It's good that you're so concerned that
Gesellschaft
misinterpreted.
Gesellschaft Miss Beschrankter Haftung. That's what it is.
Okay.
Maybe I missed a syllable. You asked what it means. I'm going to fucking tell you what it means.
We only get the finest German milled fake notes.
Yes. I'm fine. Don't worry about any of this. This is just, I put some stuff on my fingers and I need it to soak in and I need it not to rub off. I'm fine.
He's invading a dead pig later. It's all,
Yeah.
he's training for butchery course. They start when you're new. They start you on acquiring the chitlins.
Yeah.
And so you've got to.
I have to forage for my own gloves.
Yeah.